Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.
Hello and welcome back to a slightly different One United podcast today. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. We're also delighted to be joined by George Harbey. Now, George is a EFL Accredited journalist covering Nottingham Forest. And firstly, George, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. I like the Champions League music. I've said that to you before, but I really enjoy that.
We're just clinging on to that last little bit of hope at the minute. But yeah, obviously, before we start, we've linked George's Twitter down below in the YouTube description, so be sure to check him out. He's doing some great stuff. But basically, we wanted to catch up on how one of our hottest prospects are doing. Obviously, James Garner on loan at Nottingham Forest at the minute. He's been there since January after a bit of a tricky spell with Watford first half of the season. So, just to get us kicked off, George, overall, how do you think he's settled in?
So far, so good. Yeah, he's been fantastic. I think a lot of Forest fans were surprised that he became available in January because it wasn't as if he's a young lad who's gone to Watford and played 5 or 6 times. And I think he got about 12 starts there, featured about 20 times in all competitions. So, no, being fantastic. I think it's been a breath of fresh air because Forest were desperate for some creativity from midfield, and he's not had any assists or anything like that, but he's just been a class addition, and you can tell he's come through the ranks of United because just his quality on the ball is there for all to see. But no, really key player, a bit of a fan's favourite now, and look forward to seeing how he does between now and the end of the season.
Definitely. Well, a goal in the East Midlands derby, obviously, unfortunately, it didn't win you the game, but a goal nonetheless, obviously, would have had a bit of an impact on his reception that he's had in Nottingham. But, has that sort of cemented his place as a bit of a fan favourite at the minute?
Yeah, definitely. I think even if he didn't score that goal, his performances have been fantastic. That kind of typifies him as a player, really. Them late runs into the box and, be able to push forward and show his quality in front of a goal. To be fair, I thought the Derby keeper should have saved it, but we'll put it down to a ferocious left-footed effort. But no, that certainly made him even more of a fan's favourite. But just his performances since he's joined have been what they've been missing for 2/3 of the season, to be honest. But I think Forest fans will be desperate to keep him for next season. But the way he's performing, it would surprise me to manage. He came back to the Championship, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, he came to Forest in what was probably a difficult period for the club, in very much in a relegation scrap. Obviously, you're by no means out of it, but things are looking a little bit more comfortable now. Do you think Garner's had much of an impact on that? Obviously, the form has seemed to gone up a little bit since January, but obviously the arrival of Chris Hughton now seems to slightly be taking an impact on the way the team play and etc.
Yeah, I think the January window was so important because in the summer Forest signed 14 players and only one of the signs were Chris Hughton, so it took him a while to kind of get to grips with the squad he inherited. But the 3 players he brought in January have been fantastic. Him, Glenn Murray, I'm sure you know, and Kravinovic from West Brom. But Garner has been, as I said, a much-needed addition. They were lacking someone since a player called Ben Watson left at the end of last season who could really dictate the tempo of the play from like a deep-lying midfield role. Someone who can put the foot on the ball, pass it about, and get the ball out wide, because I think Forest's most dangerous players or attacking outlets come from out wide. But no, he's been fantastic, and he's only been on the bench for 1 game, I'm pretty sure, and he's been a regular starter apart from that. So long may it continue.
What does he offer defensively? Because we've seen, obviously, passing wise, he's been fantastic for us in the youth ranks. But what is he like defensively in terms of winning the ball back and stuff like that?
Yeah, he's very good at recycling the ball. I think the first 5 or 6 games he had in the Forest shirt, he was more of in a 4-2-3-1. He was more of the screen. So he was, pardon me, sat in front of the back 4, and he's very good at reading the game, I feel. And I think when you come through the ranks of United, you've got to obviously have a good footballing brain. And I've seen people make comparisons to Carrick. He does read the game really well. Can be quite erratic in tackles sometimes, but I don't think that's any bad thing. I think as a 19-year-old or 20-year-old, however old he is now, I think that's probably natural for someone who's experiencing really his first proper year of regular first team football. But No, he's been a key part of Forest midfield. Forest don't really, and I'm going to probably jinx it here, but they don't really concede too many goals nowadays. They're a lot more solid and well drilled under Chris Hughton, and I think that comes from the front. And I think he's been a key player and a solid player, and if anything, in midfield.
Definitely. Well, obviously you mentioned the formations that have been played. Where do you see Garner's best position, and where do you think he fits best in a certain system?
Yeah, so since he's joined Forest, obviously Forest play 4-2-3-1 under Hughton. That's not changed, but his role might change going forward. We've touched on it before we started recording, but in the first few games, he played alongside a midfielder called Cafu, who is more of the attacking option in the midfield too. So that kind of saw Garner take up a more defensive role and read the game like I just said. But Ryan Yates is a player who's just returned from injury, and at the weekend, them two started in midfield for the first time, and he's more of the defensive-minded option out of the two. So that gives Garner license to kind of drive forward, and almost in a way, Forest played a 4-1-4-1 at the weekend, which again allows Garner to get forward, make them late runs into the box, and I think I probably see that as his best role out of the two. I think if you can have him next to someone who sweeps up play nicely and screens the defence and is a linchpin in midfield, I think if you give Garner that license to push forward, I think that's probably his best role, and you can see him alongside someone like McTominay for United if he was given the chance. I feel.
Fair enough. Well, we'll move into sort of the specifics of his play then. Obviously, there's not a massive sample size. He's only played 9 games for Forest so far, but is there anything that stood out to you particularly that's a major strength of James Garner's play? His
passing's brilliant. I think when you look at a player, you normally look at the goals and assists, and that doesn't often tell the whole story, I don't feel. I think Garner's had a great involvement in a few Forest goals, to be honest. Obviously, I remember at one game, I don't know if you see it on Twitter, but in a 3-0 win at Wickham, he picked the ball up on one side of the pitch and outside the foot, pinged it diagonally to Joe Lolly and started a fantastic team move. And then Forest go and score from that. Against Coventry, he did very similar way, won the ball from deep, switched out wide, and then they score from across. So his passing is brilliant. His passing ranges, as soon as I see him in that first game at Coventry, at St Andrews, you just tell he's got it on the ball. He's just quality. As I said, his box to box role capabilities does well. He scored that goal against Derby, but he had a good shot saved by a Luton goalkeeper a few days after, which was typical Garner, where picked up a loose ball in the edge of the area, has a good shot and it's saved. So his recycling of the ball and keeping things ticking over and dictating tempo is probably his biggest strength, I'd say.
Who would you like him to the most? Sorry, who would you like him to the most in the Premier League? Are we looking at sort of Declan Rice kind of style player? I know they're a lot kind of a level above him, but like Kovacic style or Rice, who would you say is kind of more applicable?
I think, to be fair with Declan Rice, I think we're seeing him for West Ham move away from kind of that defensive midfielder stature. I think he's now turning into one of the midfielders who like to pick up the ball and drive forward with it. It's hard to say of Garner because he's played a couple of different roles, but I'd like to see him in that Kovacic role where potentially even in midfield 3, where he can kind of get playing that number 10 role, because I do think he's got the ability to do that. But at the minute, the predicament Forest are in, they need someone who can just control the game from deep and sit in front of the back 4. But no, as I said, I'm really interested to see how he gets on next year, because the way he's playing for Forest, I don't think he's ready for United first team place yet, but I do definitely feel that next season, because by the time the season finishes, you've got to remember he's probably played about 40 games in the Championship. So I could see him joining like a Brighton if they stay up, or a Norwich if they go up. So I think that's when you probably get a true measure of how good he is and where he probably fits in there, to be honest.
Perfect.
Fair enough. Well, just to build on that, I was going to move on to sort of how he statistically breaks down, but just to build on what you've just said there, providing Forest stay up, obviously it's looking more likely as the form picks up. Do you think James Garner would really benefit from another season at the City Ground, a bit of stability under a good manager in Chris Hughton? Do you think that would be a good option for him?
I think if he was going to come to the Championship, Forest would be right at the front of the queue. I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be. He's playing some fantastic football at Forest. He's found a manager in Chris Hughton who is obviously a very experienced manager. He trusts him, getting the best out of him at the minute. And I'd like to think next season, Forest, if they come, I think they will stay up this season. I think if they have a strong end to this season, then you can sell the ambition of finishing the playoffs next season, because they've got a decent squad of players. They only just missed out on the playoffs last year. So if they can, as I said, if you can keep on progressing and improving, and United feel that a move to the Championship could be in the offing again, I don't see any reason why Forest can't land his signature, unless someone like West Brom come down, who are favourites for promotion. But I'd like to think that Solskjaer trusts Houghton. I think he's spoken about it previously, how he's a top manager and he'll get the best out of him, and that's proven to be the case so far. So I'm sure every Forest fan, if anyone's watching this, will be desperate to have him back, because he's been fantastic. And I've seen someone the other day predict he'll play for England in the future. So there's a glowing comment there.
Yeah, well, he's already capped at under 20s, isn't he? Got his debut this season. But I wanted to break it down. I compared him before the show, did a bit of research, compared him to Scott McTominay, because I think that would be a fair comparison. Obviously, the different standard of player, playing in different standard of leagues. But, you know, James Garner defensively, 3.5 tackles and interceptions, would show he's very much defensively sound. You compare that to Scott McTominay's 2.5, and Scott McTominay is viewed as a decent holding midfielder. He's putting at the big teams putting against the big teams to try and stop them. But then you look forward, he's got matches Scott McTominay for key passes, which from a deep position, 0.7 a game in terms of chance creation from deep. That's very, very solid numbers. You know, 2 successful long balls, gives away less than a foul a game. I think that's a big thing as well. While he can be rash, I think he picks his duels well. But what sort of interested me most, and I think it's something you could maybe build on, George, is the fact that he takes on almost 2 shots a game, one of which are from inside the box, which would probably dictate that he is very much a box-to-box midfielder in that sense. You know, he's defensively astute, and he's shown signs that he can be a goal threat as well. So is that something that's coming through at Forest, the fact that he's bombing forward, not necessarily bombing forward, but getting into the right areas and looking a threat?
Absolutely. As I said before, I think the addition of Yates into the team will be beneficial for him in terms of attacking sense. Yeah, I mean, that goal against Derby, as I said, summed him up, where he's just kind of hovering on the edge of the area and scoring past the goalkeeper. And then following game against Luton, he came even closer. You know, I think it might have been a corner that fell to him on the edge of the area, or it might have been a counter attack. I can't remember now, but you know, he's not a small lad either. That's what I like about him. He's a big lad. He don't mind a tackle, so he's quite a nuisance to knock off the ball. So if he does get into them areas, you know, he's quite hard to stop, to be honest. But yeah, driving into the edge of the box and driving attacks is another key part of his game. And he's been unlucky, to be fair, not to probably score more than 1 goal he's got. But that's the task for him now, I think. If he can get 3 or 4 more goals between now and the end of the season, chip him a couple of assists, and as I said, Solskjaer's got a decision to make. And it's interesting the stats you say compared to McTominay, because I didn't think he'd compare to him in that sense, but he's done, you know, pretty well to consider him. But I remember a stat as well. I think it was something like this season as a whole, he's made, I think 80% of his passes into the final third have been accurate. So when he does hit them areas and drive into the final third, he's hitting his target more often than not. And I think for Forest, that's what was missing, because there was such a distinct lack of link-up play between the midfield and the midfield and the attackers. And he's been key in doing so, I think.
Definitely. Well, before I hand over to Henry to see if he's got anything else to ask, I just wanted to end on whether he has any weaknesses that you've seen so far. Obviously, he's still a young lad. He's learning his trade, so it wouldn't be surprising if he had. So is there anything that stands out to you that he needs to improve on?
Nothing stands out, which I guess is a positive straight away. As I said before, he's not the best decision maker, and he's not going to be at this stage. And I spoke to Chris Houghton in the press conference last week, and he was talking about he's not the perfect player yet, but that will grow with age. But he's been absolutely delighted with him so far. So, you know, there's sometimes he can pick out a better pass or not give the ball away, or be a bit wiser on the ball, and you know, not put a challenge in. But to be honest, I thought it conceded more fouls than what you said just then. So that's a different story completely. But no, there's no real obvious weaknesses. I think at a club like United, which is, you know, proudly developing youth players like Greenwood and McTominay, he's going to, you know, improve on that in the future, I'm sure. Someone like Darren Fletcher, even though he's got a new role today.
Definitely. Well, I'll hand it over to Henry before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask because United, we've got a few problem positions in our side where, striker, right winger, centre half, and CDM need addressing. We can't obviously do them all this year. We haven't got enough money to do it, enough kind of financial power because of the pandemic and whatever, and our owners. But that's a different story. But do you think that if he keeps performances up, there's a chance that he'll be in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's thoughts for next year? Because we do need, me and James have said it before, we need a defensive midfielder that can kind of do the role of Fred and McTominay together in one player, because we can't have both of them because it just hamstrings us when we're in the smaller games. So do you see him as a kind of like a more for the two players, or is he more of one than of the other?
I think he's arguably a more for both of them, to be honest. I think when I look at McTominay, he's kind of the linchpin and the anchorman of the side, and Fred's the more of the tenacious, energetic player, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's a mix of both of them. In terms of breaking into the team next season, I think it'll be hard for him. But you look at someone like Nemanja Matic, who obviously isn't getting any younger, so that almost frees up a squad space. And like you said there, you've got a number of positions to fill. A winger and a striker, I'd imagine, would be right on Solskjaer's radar this summer. So if it saves going into the market and spending 30 million on a midfielder, I think Garner has got every chance of featuring, especially as well if you consider the amount of games United play next year. The Champions League, touch wood, 38 Premier League games, FA Cup, League Cup. You look at someone like Tuanzebe, who was, it seemed as if he was completely out of the picture, but he's also come in and played, I'd like to guess 10 games this season. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting decision. As I said, I don't think he'll come back to the Championship. I'd be very surprised if he did. I'd like him back at Forest, obviously, but I definitely think he'll be playing the Premier League next year. And if Solskjaer trusts him, then that's going to give me even more confidence to flourish going forward and play for his boyhood club. So I'm looking forward to see what happens there.
Perfect.
Anything else, Emery?
No, I think, to be fair, I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we're looking for in a DM. I think, James, me and you have been looking at players that we can buy in defensive midfield for the last probably 6 months, and if we can save ourselves a bit of cash. I mean, obviously, I'm not the director of football, but they'll be looking at this as well, thinking if they can save themselves a bit of money and spend it on centre back and striker, right wing, maybe even a cover right back, then we might as well just use our youth ranks for another player.
Yeah, it would be nice to have sort of a direct replacement for Matic. He seems to fit that mould. But yeah, completely agree. But that sort of rounds us off, I suppose. George, massive thank you for joining us. Like I said at the start of the episode, his Twitter will be linked down in the description. Be sure to check him out. Doing some great stuff. So yeah, brilliant to have you on.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good luck for the rest of the season. I'll be watching from afar, hoping they get to the top four. I think they'll be. I think they'll do it.
Hopefully, and because of Garner, we'll all be watching, hoping that Forest stay up as well. But Henry, as usual, massive thanks for joining me, and thank you to everyone who watched. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. But until next time, we'll see you later.
Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.